There are 7 different ways to flip a house, and the more strategies you know turns every house into a potential deal. And after over 300 properties, I found a way to visually map each strategy. And the best part, any flip can also be a rental. Now, what most people know about flip strategies is what HGTV taught you, and they really show you 2 different strategies. Number 1 is the flip or flop method. Buy an outdated house, make it pretty, sell it. And number 2 is the zombie flip, or whatever their show's called. Buy a bombed out house, make it pretty, sell. Basically the same strategy. This is value add investing. Forced appreciation through construction. Let me show you. Every neighborhood that you're going to buy houses in has previously sold properties, and they'll tell you a story. Most people think of the pretty fixed up houses that have sold on their block, but there's also been some outdated houses that have sold and some straight up bombed out houses that have sold. And you can actually see the humps in this bar chart, and I've circled them for you, but it's easier if you look at these on a scale as opposed to a bar chart. And I've named each of these chunks for you. To the far right, there is the range of comps. This is the after repair value, the ARV. Then you have the barely bankable chunk. This is your grandma's house. It's livable, but all the fixtures are outdated. And then to the left, you have the bombed out houses. These are either gutted, the drywall's taken off all the way down to the studs, or it needs to be gutted. Value add investing is moving up the scale to the right. And that's what they do on HGTV in a nutshell. But there's more under the hood. So let's start with the cosmetic flip, AKA lipstick on a pig. Here's how it works. You buy a barely bankable house, and it's called barely bankable because it's just to the right of the livability threshold, which is a very important piece of this scale of livability, because a bank will only give you money if that house is livable today. And basically livable means that the utilities are in working order, the electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and there's no major safety concerns. These are usually your outdated houses. You buy the barely bankable house, you bring it into the range of comps, and then you sell it. Now, a cosmetic renovation is going to cost right around $15 per square foot. So if you have a 1,500 square foot house, beep, 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 that's $22,500. Should we check that? We should check that, right? Let's call it 23. Now, basically everything in a house has 3 options. You repair it, you replace it, or you leave it as is. In a cosmetic, you're going to leave as much as is as humanly possible. And most of the things that you actually do are going to be repairs as opposed to replacements. Here's your list. Floors, probably putting down LVP. Paint, probably just the interior. You're not going to worry about exterior on a cosmetic unless it's really bad and needs it. Trim and door repairs, not replacements. Paint the cabinets. Don't replace the cabinets. You might do countertops. You're going to put in a backsplash. In the bathrooms, you're going to refinish the shower and tub surround. Vanities, paint them if you can. Maybe you have to replace them. Not a huge expense. Minor landscaping, under $1,000. Always, on every property, put new hardware throughout. Door handles, hinges, pulls on a cabinet, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, only cost you a couple grand. Huge upgrade to the house, makes it feel way nicer. And finally, I always budget for just some handyman repairs. This is all the crap that I forgot in my initial scope. You're going to use the 70% flipper rule to figure out how much you should buy these houses for. Here's how it works. If that house is going to sell for $300,000. That's the ARV. That's where it sells in the range of comps. You take 70% of that. That's $210,000. And then you subtract the renovation costs. So in this case, it was $23,000. That means that you're going to give an offer to buy that house of $187,000. How are you going to get the money? Like I said, you can use bank money here, a conventional mortgage. This is what a lot of people do on their first flip. They actually live in the house and do a cosmetic flip because it is livable today. You could also get a commercial loan from a bank. You can always get hard money loans if the deal's right. You can always get private money. That means you borrow money from your rich uncle or somebody else that has money. Or if it's available for you, you could use your own cash. Problem is, everybody wants to do a cosmetic flip because they're really safe to do. They're easy, even for a beginner. But because of that, it's hard to find great deals consistently. So that's where a lot of serious investors turn to the zombie flips, the full gut flip. There are always going to be bombed out houses to buy because it takes real skills and actual risk to buy these. And that's what you get paid for as an investor. Quick note for you on the scale of livability. The further you are to the left away from the livability threshold, the more risk that you have. But the people selling the property also realize that risk. Therefore, you can get better, consistent deals when the house needs more work. The renovation for a full gut is going to be around $65 a foot. And this is where I introduce the quick six. This is what I look for on every property. This is how I'm able to quickly assess properties. Quick six: mechanical, that's your HVAC, electrical, plumbing, structural repairs, roofing, siding, and windows. I figure those in as the same thing. Each one of those things cost $8,000 to $12,000. So if you have all six, at least 60 grand right off the rip. Not only that, if you have all six of those, you are going to have to gut the house. And if you have to gut the house, now you got to pay for drywall, another 8 to 10 grand. And if you pull off the drywall, I guarantee you're going to have to redo the insulation as well because it was probably inadequate. 75 grand right from the start. And now you have basically all the same cosmetics as you did in the cosmetic flip, except for this time, instead of repairs, most of those are going to end up needing to be replaced. I'm going to give you the list here. We got the drywall and the insulation. We got the floors. We have paint interior and exterior now. Trim and doors are likely going to have to be new because you gutted the place. You're going to put in new cabinets, countertops, backsplash, vanities, tile or surround on the tub and the shower. Surround meaning one of the inserts. We got minor landscaping budget of under $1,000. That's basically the one I do for any of these flips. Hardware throughout, like I said, I always do that. And then a handyman budget for extra. You're going to use the 70% flipper rule to buy these houses as well. So $300,000 house, 70% is $210,000. But on 1,500 square feet at $65 a foot, the renovation is going to be more like $98,000. I know because it's right here. I already did the math. So my offer price would be $112,000. And honestly, you're taking on a little bit more risk with a gut job like this that's going to require that big of a renovation. So I might go down to like 65% instead of the 70% rule here. Sliding scale. It's just a rule. And whoever follows those. Financing, bank ain't giving you money for something that is in this rough of shape. If it's not livable, no bank money. You can get a commercial loan, but you got to put 20% down of the total price. So $210,000 is the acquisition plus the renovation. You'd have to put over $40,000 in. No bueno usually. So we're going to get either a hard money loan, private money, or cash. But wouldn't it be awesome if you could avoid taking the drywall off? And that is the full renovation flip. So drywall removal is not required, but the house is not livable. So this adds a new range to our scale of livability, which I call the slumlord range. Why? Because the houses are not technically livable, but usually there's somebody living in them. But this is really dangerous territory because what separates the slumlord range from bombed out is taking the drywall off. And this is where I introduce one of the big pitfalls of buying property. And that's what I call the Mirage. This is where you buy a house thinking it's in the slumlord block, that you can just move it to the right of the scale all the way to the range of comps. But what happens instead is you get into the project and you find out that you actually have to take the drywall off, go all the way to bombed out status, and then bring it to the range of comps. And I know my hands are moving backwards because of the camera. Sorry, you get it. And the problem is that you are buying it at prices where you think that you can just move it forward, but then you have to pay for all the demo, and then you have to pay for the extra work of the drywall and the insulation and whatever mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and other quick six items that you had to add that you didn't expect to. That gets a lot of people in trouble. Houses are deceptive. So focus on that quick six. Now, a full renovation should cost around $35 a foot. You look at the quick six, and on these, you're not going to have to do all of them like you do in a gut job. You're probably going to have to do a couple though. But if you get into full rewiring or wood structural issues, that's where the drywall comes off, and that's where you end up in the Mirage. As for cosmetics, you're going to have a combo of repair and replace. You're going to repair what you can, but some of these things you're going to have to replace. Same list. You're going to use the 70% flipper rule to buy one of these. So $300,000 value, 70%. That's $210,000 minus $35 a square foot, 1,500 square feet. That is $53,000. Offer price $157,000. Financing options, same as a gut job. Not going to get bank money. You're probably going to get hard money here, private money, borrowing it from your rich uncle, or if you have cash. Commercial loan, if you want to put 20% down, nobody wants to do that. All right, those first three strategies, they have a different starting point on the scale of livability. This next one has a different ending point, and this is what I call the landlord flip, or the safety and liability flip. Like I said, the houses that are in slumlord status, they shouldn't be livable. A bank wouldn't consider them livable, but somebody is living in them. Happens all the time. Why? Well, because you have a slumlord who doesn't do the basic safety maintenance that's needed for a house. So what's the difference between a slumlord and a smart investor? It's foregoing those safety and liability items. Being a smart investor doesn't mean that you have gold in all of your properties. They're not going to be the same as the house that you live in, but you can't have houses that are a potential hazard for the people that live in them. So landlord flip is moving from slumlord to barely bankable. You should spend less than $20,000 on this flip. As for the quick six, you're just looking to make sure that everything is code compliant and not dangerous. And then you have a safety checklist. I'm going to read it off to you here. We have broken glass, might have to do window repairs. Make sure that fire alarms and carbon monoxide detectors are in. Egress in the bedrooms. Egress windows mean that if a fire happens in the house, a fireman can get in and get kids out of the house. Got to make sure that happens. You don't want to be in that situation. Rails and stairs are code compliant. You want to make sure that people can't fall off decks or fall down stairs and get themselves hurt. Windows and doors locked so nobody can get in. Working sensors on the garage doors. Don't want to get people smashed in a garage door. EPA issues like mold, asbestos, lead. Now, note that this checklist is a prerequisite for any flip that you're doing, but it's really the whole deal on a safety and liability or landlord flip. Now, you're also going to use the 70% flipper rule to buy a landlord flip. You're just not actually going to do the full renovation. So the math is going to be the same. $300,000 after repair value, 70% of that is $210,000. You're going to plan for a $53,000 renovation, same as a full reno. So your offer price would be $157,000, but you're not going to do a full reno. You're going to spend more like $15,000 to $20,000, but it is not going to be worth the $300,000. It'll be worth less because you didn't put all the fixtures into it. We do this a lot of times on houses that we're holding as rentals. You want affordable rentals? Don't put gold in the thing. Make it nice enough for people to live in, and that's it. All right, for strategy number 5, we have to expand the scale of livability, and this is the builder's flip. Pretty simple here. If a house sells for $300 a square foot, and it's a 1,500 square foot house, that means it sells for $450,000. So if I added, let's say, 500 square feet to the house through an addition, well, now that house would sell for $600,000, right? An extra 500 square feet times the 300 a square foot that it would sell for, that adds another $150,000 to the sales price. Great deal if the neighborhood supports that. And it doesn't in all neighborhoods. In fact, it doesn't in a lot of neighborhoods. If you have a house that's way bigger than all the other ones, that doesn't mean you get all that money. So the builder's flip could be an addition, or it could be just your normal ground up build. That's not what I really talk about on the Solo House Flipper channel, but that is a possibility, and we do some of those sometimes. Now remember, the distance from the livability threshold is the amount of risk you have. This is why I don't do a lot of new builds, because raw land is as far from that livability threshold, the monetizable threshold, right? Because once a house gets livable, you can monetize it through rent or sale. And I don't like taking a lot of risk. So if I had 5 flips going on that are close to the livability threshold, then I might take on 1 new build, because on average, I'm in a pretty risk-free position. You see, I'm balancing unlivable with livable. Now note that on these additions, it's some sort of combo. You have the original house that might need a cosmetic flip or a full renovation, and you have the addition. Construction costs vary greatly on new builds. Some people say it's $80 a foot. Some say it's like $200 a foot. It really depends on a lot of things. These things are, what room is it going to be? Bathroom is more expensive than a bedroom. Size, smaller, is more expensive per square foot than bigger, because you still have to do the footings, you still have to do the foundation. There's a lot of base costs that come with this. The land itself, what level of dirt work do you need to do to get it ready to build on? And obviously the finishes that you choose. Now, if I'm doing an addition, I'm thinking more like $150 a foot. Whereas if I'm doing a brand new build, I might think 100 to 120 a foot. But honestly, guys, I'm a flipper, not a new builder. I'm an opportunistic new builder. Additions though, when the time is right. Now, before we move to the final two strategies, I want to touch on the 4 pitfalls of the first 5 strategies, starting with what I call the HGTV dilemma. And the thing about HGTV is they fix up these houses and they do things like have challenges on who can design the better bathroom. And that is not what happens in real life. See, if you over renovated the houses like that, there'd be nobody in that neighborhood to buy them. You would outprice to recoup your money that you spent on the renovation. You would have to price the house higher than anything is sold in the neighborhood. And that is called speculation. On the scale of livability, you are pushing it past the range of comps. That's speculating. That's hoping that somebody will buy there. That's also called gentrification. And I'm not getting into what I believe about that. What I believe about investing is it's all data driven. So the range of comps, I know that things have sold for those prices. So as long as I make the house look like those, I'll likely sell it for the same amount as the other ones like it. However, if I'm trying to get more than that, speculating, well, there's no data to prove that I could do that. Therefore, just as likely as I would get that return, I might also lose that money. I don't speculate. We make decisions based on data here. So number 1, HGTV dilemma, speculation. Don't do it. Number 2, the Mirage. We talked about that a lot. You buy a house thinking that you can move it to the right on the scale of livability, but what happens is you find out you got to do a whole bunch of things, take off the drywall, and you actually move the wrong way on the scale, but you bought it at this price. Not good. Number 3 is what I call the host. This is another way that you over renovate. This is the, oh, well, you know, if I were going to live in this house, I would want the blah, da, 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 da. You're not going to live in the house. You're never going to live in the house, and you got to get that out of your brain. You're actually doing a disservice if you over renovate the house, because then you have to charge more for the house, and there's nobody to buy the house or rent the house at that amount. So you got to discipline yourself. And number 4 is the give a mouse a cookie. I read these books to my kids at night. It's, hey, if you give the mouse a cookie, then the mouse is going to want a glass of milk to go with it. And if the mouse gets a glass of milk, they're going to want a blah, da, da, to go with it. Same thing happens in a house. You put in new floors and all of a sudden the trim looks bad. So then you're like, oh, you got to redo the trim. And then the trim looks really bad next to the paint on the walls and the drywall. So you got to redo that. But now that you've done that, it makes the cabinets look bad, and so on and so forth. So you have to be disciplined in your approach. You have to be disciplined with your scope of work, and you have to think about those types of things. Okay, if I do that, is it going to make anything else look bad in here? That's not a good strategy. Okay, here we go. Final 2 strategies. Number 6 is the gray collar flip. This is the sales flip. This is how you make money with your marketing and sales abilities. Make money with your mouth, not in a weird way. Basically, 2 ways to do this: wholesaling and wholetailing. Wholesaling is I get a contract to buy a house at $100,000. I go find another investor who would buy that same house at $110,000. I sell them my position in that contract. I don't ever actually buy the house. I never own the house. I just sell them my position in that contract for the difference. So I had it for 100. They want it for 110. I get $10,000 for selling my position. I get it at the closing table, not right off the bat. And then wholetailing is like the step up of that. Instead, I actually purchase that house at $100,000, don't do anything to it, and then I go sell it on the market for more than $100,000, hopefully. On that one, you might do a little bit of work, like under $5,000, you clean the place out, maybe send a handyman in to fix some of the scary stuff, make it smell good. That way it sells a little bit better on the market. But you're basically flipping to a flipper at that point. So you have to have a great deal. This takes great skills. No value added in construction, but a great deal on the front end, because somebody else is going to come buy that and they're probably going to apply the 70% flipper rule. So you have to have a good enough deal that there's still enough margin for them to make money and you to make money. Probably sucks for the person that sold it to you, but there's a lot of people who want the money today and they're willing to take a little bit of a discount to do that, or they just want to wash their hands of a house. Now, finally, there is the white collar flip. Now, this is for somebody that's got a specific set of skills like Liam Neeson. So this is settling a zoning or an easement issue. You buy a house, you settle the zoning issue that makes the house less valuable, or you get an easement off of the property, and then all of a sudden the house or the property is worth a lot more money. Wouldn't do that if I really understood the codes and the legalities here. But I have seen people really successful, make a lot of money doing a flip like this. Not what I teach on this channel. Next is you have lot splitting. Maybe you buy a house that's on a big lot and you split the lot into multiple different lots. You sell the lots that you split off to a builder and then just sell the house back to the market. Seen a lot of people make money that way. And finally, there's the property management type of flip. This is on income producing properties, more useful on a multifamily. So you might buy, let's say, a quadplex. Each one of the 4 units are rented for $1,000 a piece. Using the 1% rule, $4,000 a month, that would make the property worth $400,000. You go in and you turn over the tenants or increase the rents. Now they're renting at $1,300 a month, let's say. Now that property is bringing in $5,200 a month. Using the 1% rule, all of a sudden it's worth $520,000. Pretty sweet. All right, now this is how any flip strategy could also be a rental strategy. We talked about the 70% flipper rule. House is worth $300,000. Well, here's the thing. After a house is stabilized, it's fixed up, you get a renter in it. Well, now a bank will give you 80% of the value of that property. So a $300,000 property, they will give you 80%, that's $240,000. So if you bought that property and fixed it up, and of course you're going to have other costs like interest fees, utilities, and so on and so forth as you own the property, but you go and refinance it, they give you $240,000. You're able to pay off your original hard money loan or pay back the cash that you put into it. And then you have a 30-year mortgage on it that your tenant pays for every month by paying your rent. You pay the mortgage with the rent money. And that's why every flip is the same as a rental. You can either sell to the open market or you can sell it to the bank in a refinance. Now here's the thing. Knowing all 7 strategies widens your buy box. Now anything could be a potential deal for you. But first, you have to actually define your buy box. That's like the first domino in the game of real estate investing or flipping houses. And there are 9 factors that determine what that buy box is. And I made a whole video about it. Check it out right here. Thanks for hanging out, guys.